In this video, I want to look at a feature of web browsers and something you can do in JavaScript in general, but also this thing is built into the p5.js library in a rather nice way that I enjoy. And this feature is dragging a file into the browser and making use of that file. And that file could be an image, it could be a text file, it could be some sort of data file. Data is a thing that I'm going to get into in some future videos. There's different kinds of data formats. So there's lots of potential to what you could do if you ask the user to say, hey, give me an image, and I'll do something that's really exciting and interesting in the browser with that image. Or give me 100 images, and even that. So let's look at how that works. So first of all, what I mean by that, and I guess I probably don't need this diagram, but I'm going to draw it anyway, is on the web page, I'm going to make an area on the page, right? So I'm going to have a canvas, and I want an area on the page where if I have some sort of file, if I drag that file and release it there, and if this is an image, I want to see that image then suddenly appear and be drawn into the canvas. So how do you do that? Let's go and look. So I've sort of set this up in advance. I have this particular example, and you can see it's got exactly what I'm talking about. This canvas is made with the create canvas function, and you can see background is called, so you can see that it has a black background. Then there, above the canvas is this like dashed area on the screen that says drag your file here. Now, where did that come from? That is written into the HTML file. So I'm going to go over here and look at the canceled. Look at the HTML file, and you can see there it is. There's just a paragraph element, drag your file here. I gave it an ID called dropzone because I'm going to need to refer to it. Hey, that's the paragraph element that I want to be able to drop something onto. And then also I've just written some styles referring to that dropzone. And maybe just so it's a little bit more visible, I might say font size is 36 point, and maybe I'll do something like width is 50%. So by the way, this is also something that you might not have seen before. There's all of these units that are happening in CSS. PX for pixels, so actually like the number of pixels want that padding. Point for something that has to do with typography that I'm sure somebody understands much better than I do. But you know, the larger the point, the larger the font size, but also percentage being relative. So this DOM element is always just going to be 50% the size of the page, which you'll see now if I hit run again, you can see as I resize the page, that DOM element doesn't have a fixed size. It's always just 50% of the page. That's a nice little tidbit that I'm adding into this video. So how do I make it so that I can drag a file there? Incidentally, what happens if I drag a file right now? I drag this file over here and I drop it, and I'm gone from the page. Look, and you can see that that file is just literally opened up in the page. It's a file of bacteria. I don't know, I was trying to do something other than rainbows and unicorns, but maybe bacteria, I went in the wrong direction. But it's interesting. Okay, so I need to get this working. So first of all, I need to add some JavaScript events to this element. I want to handle the event. So the browser handled that event for me, right? When you drag the file into the browser, it assumes like, oh, I'm a browser, you're dragging me a file, I'll open it. I want to say to the browser, no, I'm in charge here. Don't do what you're going to do. I got something else for you. I got something else planned. So if I come over here, and first I need to do is I'm going to make a variable, and I'm going to call select. So select, and let's make this a global variable, because I might want to access it in other places. I'm going to say select the drop zone. Now, something that I'm doing here, which you might find a little bit confusing, but I find this to be just so convenient. I like to just name my variable with the same name as the ID. It's absolutely not required. The ID can be totally, and nobody knows whether or cares whether they're the same. Just you, the programmer. For me, it's a little bit convenient, but I don't want you to be confused that there's some like matching happening there. That's just, I happen to name the variable the same name as the ID. Okay, so what's next? You know that you can attach an event to an area by referencing that event as a function called on that object. So the mouse pressed event, the changed event, the input event, the mouse over, the mouse out. These are all events that I've looked at in previous videos. I've got a new event for you. I don't remember what it's called, but I do know there's one that's drag over. So the drag over event, let's handle that with a function called highlight. Okay? So I'm going to say function highlight dropzone.style background color, and let's give it a little gray. And zoom back out here. So now this should, at least I've handled one event, drag over. Okay, so now if I take this file and drag it over here, you can see it becomes gray. Now it's never not becoming gray, but at least I've got that event. So this, by the way, has nothing to do, so far this has nothing to do with the file. I'm just handling an event if you drag over it. If I move the mouse over it, it doesn't do anything. If I drag the mouse over it without a file, it doesn't do anything. This is an event only for when I drag a file over it. You can see it becomes gray. So that's one thing I can do. Now, what if if I'm like dragging a file, then I'm like, no, bad idea, take the file out. Maybe I want to unhighlight it, right? So I could then say, I can't remember what it's called, but I think it's drag out, unhighlight, and I'll just reset the background color. Oops, I'm going to write another function, and I'm going to reset the background color to white. Now, you might be asking yourself a question, and I need to get to this in another video. But you might be asking a question like, what do I need these two functions for? I could really have just one function that accepts an argument, white or gray. And then I could say drag over, call that function with gray, drag out, call that function with white. This is actually quite possible in JavaScript. I'm doing it this way for convenience because, again, the other way requires a sort of some trickiness for how do I get an argument kind of into those functions. I would love to get to that. Remind me. I will remember. I'm going to think of a good scenario and try to make a nice video that, because it's sort of like a fundamental aspect of JavaScript. It uses this thing called a closure. Okay, so, but we're not doing that right now. I'm not doing that right now. I'm going to leave this as two separate functions. But you're right to ask that question, because you being the metaphorical person who I think I'm talking to. I mean, yeah, okay. So, undefined is not a function. Line 8. Probably drag out is wrong. So how do we figure this out? I should stop being so like, I'm just going to imagine what the p5.dom API has in it, and I should probably go and look this stuff up. So if you were doing this and you got this error and you wanted to figure out how to find it, you could open up a browser, you could go to p5js.org. I'm going to click on, you should be able to find this under reference, and I'm sure that will change at some point soon, but an easier way to find it, I'm going to go under libraries, and I'm going to go to p5.dom, and now I'm going to see, oh, look at all of these methods, and look at that. I called it drag out, but we can see here the event is actually called drag leave. That's the name of the function, drag leave. Oh, by the way, there's add class and remove class. Interestingly, class, I'm thinking of something that happened in a previous video, and I wonder if that should actually be changed. But anyway, it's a side topic. I'll have to think about that in my own time. So drag leave is the name of the function that I wanted. So I'm going to minimize that and come back. And I could have clicked on it to see some more information, but I don't need to do that right now. I feel confident that I could just type drag leave here. And now I can run this again, and here we go. File, leave, file, leave. Look at that. What a nice little, I'm so good at user interface interaction design. I'm being sarcastic because I'm not good at that. But you can see this is a bit more intuitive, at least, to be able to handle these types of events of when you have the thing over and when you have the thing out. So, but we're missing kind of the exciting thing. This is just like, nothing's going to happen. Like if I, look, that's the same thing happened. That event, the drop event, when I let go of the mouse, when I perform this release action, this is me miming the release action, I need to handle that event. And that event is handled with the drop function. Now, what goes in here? Let's think about this for a second. So let me comment this out and run this. There are two things that have to happen, and this is tricky. One thing that has to happen is I need to read that file. The other thing that needs to happen is I might want, okay, well actually, there really aren't two things. I was thinking intuitively there aren't two things. There's one moment, right? I drop. So the moment I drop, I might want to handle that event by like applying some style to it, like unhighlighting it. And then I also want to read the file that's been dropped. But those are actually divided into two separate callbacks. And there's a really good reason for that. And the good reason for that is that I might want to take all of these images. What if I drag all of these images into the browser? I need a callback to handle each file one at a time, but there's only one moment of dropping. So, so in that sense, and I forget which is which, let's go back to the reference. So, oops, let me go back to the reference here. And I'm going to click on this drop event. And you can see we could read this, callback, callback. So look at this. The first callback is triggered when files are dropped. So that's the event, the actual event of dropping the files. Then the second callback is to when the file is loaded. And actually, these also happen at separate times, because what if you drag and drop a like 500 megabyte image file, right? That drop moment happens instantly, but it might take the browser quite a while to read that very large file. So that's why those are two separate events. So I can go back to my code and I can say, you know what? When I drop it, I also want to unhighlight the box, right? I want to unhighlight it, and then I want to handle the file. So I'm doing two things. As soon as I drop it, unhighlight the box, and also trigger a new function, got file. Function got file. Now, interestingly enough, so let's just run this and at least see now when I drag the unicorn over here. Let's just only the unicorn, please. It highlights, it unhighlights. It highlights, it unhighlights. Let's drop it. It unhighlights, and I've overridden the default browser behavior. The default browser behavior would have been to open that file, but I've now overridden that by whatever goes here. So now I can do whatever I want, and not only can I do whatever I want, I can do whatever I want with the data in that file. For example, I could say create image file. Now, I don't think this is actually going to work. I know it's not going to work because that's so, but let's try it with this rainbow. Right? Something appeared there, but it's like a broken image. So this thing here, the argument that comes into the function, this might be actually something rather new to you, I'm realizing, because most of our callbacks, like highlight or unhighlight, don't have data that arrives with it. So this is a new scenario. This callback, P5, is not only triggering the callback when the file is ready to be loaded, but it's also handing a variable. And inside that variable is just, P5 is like such a nice, wonderful friend that P5 is like, look, I'm going to call this function, I'm going to hand you this variable, and I'm going to fill that variable for you with all of the data associated with that file. So this file variable is actually an instance of a P5 file object. And there's all this information. Like, I know how big the file is, what its name is. There's lots of metadata associated with that file. And something that's in that file is a property called data. And that data might just be the text that's in the file. It might be some other data format that's in the file, or it might be image data. So if I say create image file.data, now watch this. Oh, okay, let's look at the reference. You sure I saved that? I ran that? I'm pretty sure that was right, but we have a little bit of a problem here. It's not working. So let me go back to the reference, and I'm going to go to the reference, and I want to look for file. File. This is where this. Where's the P5 file object? Somebody find it for me quickly. P5 image, p5.file. I'm not seeing it. So it's some reason it's not in the reference, which it probably should be. I'm taking drastic measures here, and I'm going to go to the p5.js GitHub repository. I should actually just look for I should look for an example that does this. There's actually an example that I was going to go into the GitHub repository. I'm just going to fast forward through the video like 30 seconds or a minute. You can skip this part, but I'm going to go look for under learning, maybe, or under DOM. Let's look at under P5 element. I'm going to look for the drop. This is probably not the right place. No, I want under examples, DOM, random, DOM, drop. There we go. File.data. Well, by golly, I was right, wasn't I? Create image file.data. So that's what I meant to do. Why didn't that work? Let's be a little bit more methodical about this. Maybe something else is going wrong that I don't know about. So, for example, let's see if there's some of the metadata there. I'm going to say create p file.name, create p file.type, create p file.size. And so a file has all this metadata associated with it. Its name, its type, its size. Those are all strings. That's just data. And data should actually be the image stuff. So let's run this. And let me drag in this rainbow file. And you can see undefined drop undefined. Oh, you know what? I wonder if guess what I think I might have done. I know what I did. I probably reversed the order of those. Callbacks. So this is a very common thing that happens. Aren't you enjoying the fact that I just mess this stuff up all the time? I really hope you are. So this is something, so we've looked at this and realized like the callback is triggering. I mean, of course it's triggering because there are two callbacks. Both of them are triggering, but I'm triggering them probably in the wrong order. So let's go back to the P5 reference, libraries, DOM, and let's look at this drop function right here, and let's read this again. The first callback triggers when the files are dropped. The second callback triggers to receive the loaded file. Isn't that the way I did it? First callback, but I have a feeling the reference, so it wasn't entirely my mistake. I have a feeling the reference misled me. Let's switch the order of these. It's probably the first argument is the callback to handle the file, and the second argument is the callback to handle the event, just the dropping event. So let's try this again. And here we go. Yay! So I've got my, and let's do something where I say var image equals create image. I say image dot size 100 100. And I'm going to do create p. I'm going to just join one string. So I'm going to take this out just to make this a little shorter. Now let's look at this again. I'm going to make a bigger window. We can have this nice moment where I drag the unicorn here. There's our unicorn. I drag the rainbow here. There's the rainbow. I drag another rainbow here. There's that. So you can see here, the files are coming in. I'm adding them to the page. And also I get information. How big was the file? What was the name of the file? I could use that information. I'm just sort of like spitting it right back. So this is interesting, hopefully. So I'm not really doing anything with that. And also I should mention, let's just prove that this works. I'm going to refresh this page to start over. Let's drag all of the images all at once. And there you go. All of them appear. So it's handled. That callback was triggered many, many times for each image. So I'm going to do one more thing, which I think it just kind of like makes this seem a bit more magical. So you can have a DOM element that has like a dotted line and says drag your file here, but anything can be a DOM element that you drag stuff onto. Even like a button could or a slider could, even that barely makes any sense. But let's actually do something to this example. I'm going to do save as, drag and drop to. I'm going to say, you know what? Forget about this drop zone thing. Take that out of there. Take that out of there. Why not store the canvas in a variable and say canvas.drag over, canvas.drag leave, canvas.drop. So look at this. If I run this now, I can just take this image and drag it over the canvas. Drop zone is not defined. All right, I don't need any of this styling stuff anymore, to be honest with you. I'm deciding like not to care about that. I can do something much simpler. I can just use the single callback of dropping it. I'm not just skipping the visual feedback part, right? So anything can be a drag and drop element. And now let's think about this even more in a different way. What if when I drag the element onto the canvas, I want to see the image in the canvas? So what can I do? I can just call the image function, image 0, 0 with height. So this is the difference, again, between making a DOM element image and then versus drawing an image into a canvas. The image function draws that image, whether it's through load image or create image, into the canvas. Create image makes the DOM element. So now we should be able to see this, that. Now I'm only seeing the top left corner of the image because they're kind of small. I'm surprised about that because I'm drawing it supposedly with the width and height of the so I'm kind of surprised. I feel like that's a little bit of a P5 bug there. I don't know why that's not working. I have to examine that. But also the thing that I wanted to show you is that even though I might have to do it this way to create the image via to create the image as a way of like getting the data from the file, I can use the P5 function image.hide. So I can make that DOM element purely to open that file, and then I can hide it instantly and then draw it into the canvas. I'm actually sort of surprised this is working because I realized that I was sort of thinking, that there might be another problem associated with this. But now it's working. I don't know what I missed with the width and height before. Maybe that size thing probably messed things up. you can see, look at this, that was a transparent image. So you can see now, as I drag and drop the images onto the canvas, I see the image there. So that concludes this particular video, where what I was hoping to demonstrate, I think I did, which is the idea that you can create any element on the page, and you can handle when you're dragging a file over it, when you decide you're not going to drag that file over it, and when you actually drop that file. And if it's an image file, you can use that image to display the image data. And in some other video in the future, I'll probably show you how to do it with a text file and do something like word counting in the text file. But that you might investigate the load strings function and sort of see how you might do that. I don't have a good exercise. I can't think of one. I'll write something in the description. OK, thanks. And I think I have one more sort of DOM video to make after this one.